All right, I've been asked to moderate the Q&A, so here I go, moderating. Just for those who are towards the back, yeah, wave your hand, because from this angle, it's really hard to see hands that are up. So there's one right here, and then one here, and then one at the very back.
Two questions. Emma Green from Investment Open Infrastructure. Nikesh, thank you. Well, thank you both, but Nikesh, specifically on what you presented, there's also an additional layer to why training data might not be in those environments quite often, and we have La Referencia in this room. Not all of those organizations or infrastructures have the capacity to keep up or serve some of the training data needs. There is funding required for that, and I guess my question is, well, one is highlighting the fact that it might be English because those are the larger organizations that have the funding to cope with that, but also if we're trying to encourage a broader sense of, in the training data, who provides the funding to enable that from the infrastructures and organizations in those regions?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so far the anecdote that I am aware of, at least, and talking about AI for Bharat, I think there's a collaboration that is happening between the government. There are institutions that are supporting it. So yeah, I think it still is fairly unanswered and early in terms of how do we solve that. It is a real issue. But yeah, I know at least of one example, Emma, that we are starting to see how it's playing out. But I don't know, Simone, if you have any thoughts on that. Yeah.
Oh, right down here. Yes. Could we just turn all the mics on?
Hello. Hi, Simone. Really like to see. It was really great to see the internal tool you've built to provide a safe environment. Can you share anything about which models you're using and whether you're seeing any impact on model selection in terms of performance?
Yeah, as I said, I shared that slide as a kind of an afterthought, so I don't have someone from our product team with me, but it is built on a mesh of Anthropic, Claude, OpenAI, Google, and what I've been told by the product team is that they have tried to select, so there are differences, but they've tried to select different tools for different use cases to where they perform best. I expect that there's some, oversight that means that probably takes a lot of time to be able to do that, and it will probably change a lot. I know there are probably some risks with that as well. But one thing that I know they would like to do and kind of feeds into this whole aspect of transparency is to start sharing more about the back end and being able to say what's performing well and how we're updating things each time, having a version control so that people can share insights of what they're learning, publishers can share together what's working well and what's not. And hopefully that will move us towards this future of being able to really understand where the limitations of some of these tools are and how that might be influencing the research evaluation and how people are using these tools. So I think, I'm not sure if this was where you were getting at, but essentially I would love to see us all talking a bit more about the models in the back end and being really transparent about that, because it's also how we take care of some of the issues that Nikesh was talking about. If we're having tools come on the market from these regions that are not being represented, hopefully we can plug those in as well, and then we can see a move towards a more inclusive tool or more inclusive system, specifically at least in the scholarly environment, even if people are still in other environments drawn to these tools that we know are slightly inaccurate.
Yes.
Thanks both for great presentations. I'm Joe McKenzie from Wiley. Nikesh, using your Shirley card analogy, of calibration there helped improve representation or photographization of people with darker skin tones across the world. I wondered if there are similar things that we could do to improve representation across large groups and large international areas, or is it better to focus our energies on specific things in certain regions and certain languages, certain underrepresented groups, for both of you?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, it depends. Again, using the example of India, it's huge, the number of languages, the number of researchers. I think it has to be more of a broader solution perhaps in place. So yeah, I think it depends really on maybe, geography to geography. But again, I don't know, Simone, if there's anything to add.
Was your question how you can increase the other languages that are being trained in the model?
Languages, or like you're talking about AI literacy, for example. Like AI literacy, for example, did you find that there were things that we could do that would help people in all different countries around the world, or would it be better to have focused programs for focused regions?
Yeah, I think this really goes back to that group D, I think it was, that are looking at community engagement, because I think that part is really key. I kind of tried to avoid putting too many solutions in the presentation, because it's that idea again of forming the answer without having spoken to all the different people for all the different challenges that they're finding or what they're not seeing. So I think that part is key, to be able to come up with some of those answers. And in theory, my sign's gone of being the grain of the rice, but I think if everyone in their different spheres can get together and think about some of those problems, see people presenting white papers and sharing that information, then we can move towards some of those answers.
And sorry, I think, good that you clarified the question. I think, broadly speaking, the response remains the same, but I think, again, going by the example of India, I think ChatGPT, OpenAI reported that they have the highest number of usage, perhaps, or one of the top 3 in India. But I still feel, looking at the size of the country, there's hardly any literacy related initiatives that have taken fruition. So there's so much more to do. It is starting to happen with the AI summit. There was a lot of conversations around it. But we've not even scratched the surface, so yeah.
All right, way at the back.
Thanks, Simone and Nikesh. 2 amazing talks, excellent. Nikesh, your example of the African researcher trying to publish was particularly powerful. And one of your solutions, and actually I'm going to build a little bit on what Simone's just said, was having a human in the loop. Humans are possibly the most biased creatures on the planet. We know everyone has human implicit biases. I have my own. They're ill-informed perceptions that are allowed to manifest in real life. Scientists don't think they have implicit biases. I think it's a responsibility that we all have in this room to educate researchers about the changing landscape. The landscape is truly global. I still hear editors saying to me, can you please QC out all papers from China because they're going to be fraudulent? China is producing some of the highest impact research in the world, and yet those biases exist. Raising awareness of global diversity, global research excellence, is something that we have to take responsibility for. And if we see bias in AI systems, we will be able to make hopefully an informed decision on what we think of the results. But currently, we will only verify the biases of AI if we don't do more to educate at the community level of research excellence globally.
Yeah.
Was that a comment or a question? Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, this is kind of tangential, but we also, I see a big role for anyone who has a human in the loop in your organization to really take a lot of time to actually make sure that you're looking into what that looks like. So for one example, we have AI tools that are supposed to support editors with ethics checks, for example. And editors have a responsibility to check the information that comes with that tool. We have an in-house research integrity team as well that check everything so decisions don't get made without that human in the loop. But we did a research project recently that we presented at a conference that shows that when those AI checks or those AI reports are very functional, editors over time, their engagement with that tool drops. So when you're rolling out these AI, I had some slides on AI publisher tools, but I didn't have time to share them. But when we're using tools in collaboration with humans, there is still that feeling that we spoke about yesterday of people disengaging, and the human in the loop aspect of it goes down. And so that I totally agree with your point that that's really important as well.
Godwin?
Hi. I'm Godwin Somochukwa. I'll try not to ask a difficult question this time, but it builds on what Ritu just said about bias. And I'm always concerned when it comes to AI, because AI is a good tool if we use it well. But AI is based on biases that exist. And as Ritu just said, every human has their own implicit bias. So I wonder if you have any suggestion or idea on how we can address this bias, because I think part of it is what both of you have presented on to us today. How can we build to limit bias so that it doesn't become what I call multiplied bias, because there is a tool built on bias being used by biased individuals or humans? Thank you.
Do you want to go first, Nick?
I mean, yeah, I think I might have mentioned that the only immediate solution that comes to mind is to probably, run a few experiments, measure the results, and measure perhaps, the improvement or the extent of issue, and then keep improving, iterating. I understand, and to even, address Ritu's point and question, we see that we get an enormous amount of research or feedback every week, every month, and we see clear differentiation in maybe, say, Japan versus, any other market. But I think, from my perspective, the only thing I can think of is running experiments, trying a few things out, reiterating, and keeping on improving.
I also like the idea, we always say human in the loop as a person who's kind of policing the AI tools that might be biased, but also thinking of it the other way around. So there is obviously opportunities for AI tools to point out when certain decision makings are showing certain patterns in maybe your editorial boards or the decisions that are being made on manuscripts in those regions. So a true collaboration could work well both ways. So there's opportunities there as well. Should I be worried about this big flashing red sign that says we're over time?
You can ignore that.
Okay.
No, we've got about 10 more minutes.
Okay, great.
Phil in the middle. Oh, sorry. Before Phil, yes, you in the pink, sorry.
Hi, I'm Rachel from Elsevier. I think it's been an interesting conversation. I've seen lots of lists for researchers. I've seen lots of lists for what librarians could do or what policymakers can do. And I think it's kind of interesting because behind these AI tools are huge technology companies, AWS, Meta, all of which have stepped back on their DEI commitments last year, and I think they are continuing to step back. So these tools are not being developed by companies that prioritize diversity. They're also huge black boxes in that they are not releasing any information. I work in climate. I can't get any data center information about it. We don't have any details about any of the model level impacts, what's happening beyond performance, let's put it that way, metrics that they choose to sort of send out. And I just wondered, is there not something here where we need to collectively start thinking about what we want from these big technology companies based in the US, out of Silicon Valley, and of which will not be regulated in any time, shape, or form. So is there not something here that we need to collectively, as an industry, get behind and start really asking for and demanding transparency, particularly if we think that it's going to impact trust?
Do you mind if I jump in?
Please.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's a big fear of mine as well. And I think probably it was one of the reasons why the dial shifted yesterday in the debate slightly between being more positive and being slightly more skeptical about the future of AI. But it was one of the reasons why I included on the list of things to be in AI literacy is the advocacy for change, because I think I do see that as a numbers game. Again, the single grain of rice tipping the scale, but I do also recognize that that may be potentially optimistic from my standpoint. I don't know how much power we have to influence those changes when there's so much money going into those companies and they have so much power to kind of do whatever they want. But all I can say is that I'm a big proponent of making sure that we're at least teaching, hopefully everyone, how to use these AI tools, where the limits are, what the challenges are, what these injustices are that come alongside it sometimes, so that that can hopefully support with advocating at scale for some kind of change. I don't know if you have thoughts, Nikesh.
No, I think, yeah, I agree with you, Rachel. I think at least the one data point that I shared, 93% trained on English, and I think that was dated. We don't have any more information after that. So, yeah, absolutely, we need to, come together as an industry, as a community. Yep, happy to discuss further.
Phil.
Hi, so both great presentations. Thank you so much for those. They were excellent. I think the best of the conference, I would say. It's been really...
Put it on the feedback form. I don't want to hear it.
So I've heard you make this point before, actually, Nikesh, in talks that I've seen you do, about the fact that so much of LLMs are trained on English language data, biased towards native English speaking, written work, and so forth. And at the same time, and I should say that, and that can create a systematic bias within these systems. At the same time, there's a lot of people in this room who are concerned about the content that they own the license for, or the copyright for, or the author, being taken and used without appropriation, being monetized without compensation, and so forth. So is there a tension or a balance, perhaps, between inclusion on the one hand and appropriation on the other?
Yeah, I think probably both, Phil. I think there's a fair bit of tension, again, when we talk to researchers, when we talk to the different stakeholders. But yeah, at the same time, like you mentioned, there is a clear need to balance. And like I said, maybe more of the initiatives like, AI for Bharat need to be pushed going forward. It's just a start. It's getting trained on 22 languages, like I said, very small funding still. So yeah, we need to take those steps further as well, but at the same time, probably strike a balance.
Nikesh, can you say something about a principle that we might be able to apply in seeking that balance?
So yeah, I think maybe a repetition, Drake, but I think, like I said, a few different things. One is some of these initiatives is very low funded in Global South. If I look at Africa, if I look at India, so it clearly needs more funding. There needs to be more literacy and more awareness that needs to be created. And then, yeah, perhaps, I think more awareness, even with this community or the bigger organizations that we spoke about, sitting at the table, looking at policy levels. Governance is an important element. So yeah, maybe 3 or 4 different things. But I think, looking at the ground level, say, for example, in India or even in some of the other countries, I think it's a start, but it's been a very slow start. And we really need to fast track that.
Yeah. Simone, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think, I hope Godwins doesn't mind me stealing some of the information that he told me yesterday, but sometimes these tools, or we're having an environment where people can consent to their material being included in some of these databases or being used. And in some regions where they're not represented, those people are more inclined to tick the box that says they don't want their data included because they don't feel like those tools are representing them, they don't trust them, and they don't feel like they want to support that idea or that narrative. So I think that's something when we're talking about things about regional access that we could potentially target, or maybe if we have tools that are more inclusive, promoting at least them to be included somewhere, because people are using these tools for discovery. And I do worry that they will get left behind if we don't find a way for them to participate in some of these structures in the AI future. So I think that's part of it as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Hi, thanks. I'm Ian Mulvaney. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at the British Medical Journal. I wanted to take a moment to take a comment, just to share a thought in terms of the debate around bias. And what I wanted to share with the group is, I think it's quite helpful often to separate what these AI tools can do from what they know. And so they're a really weird technology, but they can do things. And so, for example, if you get the tool to build you a PowerPoint based on your own notes, it will do that for you. That's a low-risk type of activity that bias doesn't creep into. If you get it to write a web page for you based on your own content, it's a low-risk activity. And there are lots of areas in our value chain where this can create value that has low risk on the bias side. The data that goes in to train it has miraculously created tools that can do things for us, that we can give tools to, and how we implement those in our organizations are design decisions, and we have control over that. So bring your critical thought and work with your technology leaders and work with your editorial leaders to think about those boundaries of control and boundaries of safety. When you ask the tool for an opinion or a summarization or a translation or to execute a search strategy, that's leaning far more into what it knows rather than what it can do. And so I think it's helpful to try and think about that distinction between what they can do and how we might enhance our ecosystems from those purposes versus what it knows and how bias leaks in there. And that can be a helpful
distinction.
Helpful description to navigate what will be a really weird and complicated world in the next couple of years.
Okay, Tiberius, and then was there somebody ahead? Oh, yes, please. And then Tiberius, and then I think we're going to have to end quickly.
I thought your talks were fantastic, and I think the issue of language is enormous. I think there's an amazing resource called Clarins, which is open source data, which I think we can use more. Last year I had a role where we were providing language data, and we were supposed to pitch it to companies, big tech companies. They didn't care when it came to kind of EDI issues and things. And I'm pleased that the issue of climate was raised because the UN years ago said how important a traditional ecological knowledge is for responding to the climate crisis and things. So I think it's really intertwined with the issue of language. So given it's not really, it could be a bit naive to be expecting the big tech companies to be interested given their kind of the precedent that they've set. As a community, can we somehow, how do you see there being, I'm trying not to make a comment, I'm trying to make it a question, I'm sorry, and I'm trying not to be, anyway. Point is, how can we encourage the community to make use of what we do have? And we do have access to goodwill, and there is open language data that is good value, good quality. How can we encourage companies that are dictating so much of what's going on in these models to use them? And we have to force them, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have an immediate response. I think to what Rachel mentioned and you mentioning, I think clearly something needs to be done. I don't know if we've had enough active discussions, if we've, organized, maybe a roundtable and talking about these things, if we've gone and spoken to some of these big organizations, perhaps that is a starting point. And then, if probably nothing happens, force might be too strong, but we might have to kind of, do something as a community.
Yeah, this isn't really my area of expertise, but I do wonder if there's a role for competition and maybe other tools coming on the market that are more inclusive and people that care about the information that these tools are trained on. We saw such a moral influence over whether people choose to use AI. And that could be something where it influences what tools people use, and therefore there's a market in that. And I wonder if that could influence whether some of these bigger companies start to try and be more inclusive and use wider data sets and train on wider language. Again, a very optimistic view.
So we are out of time, but since we're going into a break with no lightning talks, I'm going to exercise the right of the podium and give Tiberius the chance to ask a very, very quick question.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful for this. I will suggest something that I suggested to LERU last week, the League of European Research Universities. It landed well with them, this suggestion. And we are looking to, and speaking about these large organizations developing AI, supporting, having power for that. And some of them are so large that we can consider them states. They have netizens so big, so many netizens that really they are almost autonomous like states. So my suggestion to LERU as today is to consider opening embassies to these states, these new states. So take them by surprise. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but I don't think the right engagement with them is to tell them what to do, to tell them what we expect their strategy to be. I don't think we have the power to produce too much of an impact. But if the strategy would be very similar to what an embassy is doing from one state to the other, is take them by surprise. Whether you are an organization like Harvard or OASPA that is representing so many open access publishers, ask them, of course, expect surprise, ask them if they agree to have an embassy there. Exactly like an embassy, to develop a diplomacy program with them, to represent your interest, to listen to their interest into a structural way, exactly like an embassy. It's out of norm, most probably, but they are like states. So I think the best is to treat them near states organizations. That's a suggestion. I don't know how it lands here.
Any quick thoughts in response?
Yeah, interesting idea.
Yeah.
Maybe it will come to fruition.
All right, will you join me in thanking Nikesh and Simone?
Thank you.